This is the guy that wants to be your vice president, calling the #1 entrepreneur in America that gay guy. You understand how weird that is?
So
I'd never do that to Adam. He's calling him that gay guy.
That gay guy. You've never said that. You've never said that.
Adam, how do you feel about that gay guy comment that Tim Walz just made?
Listen, I'm going to just quote Elon Musk on this, right? I got no problem being called gay, to be honest.
Imagine thinking you know Tim Walz. Then Patrick Bet-David strolls in like a plot twist nobody ordered, dropping truth bombs hotter than a microwave burrito at 3 a.m. This isn't your average politician gets roasted story. Oh no, this is Patrick peeling back the curtain to reveal the Tim Walz nobody warned you about. Forget polished speeches. Get ready for quirks, chaos, and the kind of reality check that'll leave you asking, wait, that's the real Tim Walz.
So I got a question for you. You know, we watch you to see, how much ruckus and chaos you create sometimes. Why do you ask such a technical question from, the former VP candidate, Tim Walz? I want to start off with this, if you don't mind, because this is an offensive question. I mean, you can ask some subtle questions, but Rob, if you can play this, the audience is deeply concerned about you.
If you're enjoying, please subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you think. So, here's the thing about Tim Walz. On paper, he looks like a regular Midwestern politician, safe haircut, boring tie collection, and the charisma of a lukewarm bowl of oatmeal. But then Patrick Bet-David decides he's had enough of this grandpa next-door routine and starts ripping back the wallpaper to show us the weird circus hiding behind it. Spoiler alert, it's not pretty, and it's definitely...
Question for everybody. How often do you talk and say something like, hey, Vinny, you know that gay guy? You ever talk to people like that?
Never.
I'm just curious, do you talk like that? Maybe you're watching this, you're like, I don't want to admit to it because I'm sitting in the bathroom watching this, but just yesterday I told my brother that gay guy. Okay, maybe that's you. That's okay. But guess what? Don't feel bad. Because somebody that's about to be your vice president also says that regularly. He says it so regularly that it's slipped up on stage. This is not even without cameras.
Walz has been out here for years convincing people he's the wholesome, small-town dad figure. You know, the type who tells corny jokes at PTA meetings and grills burgers at community cookouts. But once you peel off that Midwestern politeness like old duct tape, what's left underneath is a mashup of contradictions that make you wonder if he's an underrated performance artist or just winging it every single day.
What is a woman? What is a woman is the question.
I'm not sure I understand the question here.
Well, that.
So
Okay.
what do you want me to say? This is...
I want you to say that a woman like me is an adult human female, that men can't become women. You guys are the party of violence, and you're the party erasing women. You don't respect us. You're a bigot. You're a misogynist. You're a sexist. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Patrick lays it down. The guy plays political football with the enthusiasm of a little league dad, but then tries to rewrite the rulebook mid-game. 1 minute he's pretending to be everybody's moral compass, the next is bending like a pretzel depending on which crowd is clapping the loudest. It's like he downloaded all the political cliches from the 90s, mashed them into one file, and now recites them like a broken speaker.
Biology, which kind of worked in your favor. But Rob, if you want to play this clip, he called Elon Musk.
Pat, don't judge me.
I would never do that.
He never judges you. How long have you known that?
I would never do that. Rob, play this clip.
So poorly. Not only did we lose 10 million jobs, we were pitted into a hunger game against our neighbors to find toilet paper. That's how bad it was. So now, I suppose it wasn't too bad, thinking back to that economy. If you're a billionaire, Elon Musk, for example, say, that gay guy, Michigan knows that word. Look, that dude got a tax cut and the rest of us got shafted.
And don't get it twisted. Walz isn't some accidental, goofy character. He's the kind of guy who clearly wakes up in the morning, stares at the mirror, and asks himself, how can I confuse as many people as possible today without looking like I'm trying? Somehow, that's his entire brand. Take his I'm a man of the people act. Sounds good, right? Until you realize this is a man who has carefully crafted his image like a mid-budget Netflix drama. Folksy smiles, awkward handshakes, random baseball cap appearances, it's all part of the script. But then Patrick points out that behind those photo ops, there's a whole lot of decisions that scream less average Joe and more wannabe mastermind with a degree in political gymnastics. It's like Tim wants to be your uncle who gives life advice while grilling hot dogs, but instead he shows up as the uncle who overshares conspiracy theories at Thanksgiving and then falls asleep in the recliner by 7:30. That's the real W energy. Patrick doesn't just hint at this, he practically waves a neon sign around saying, "This guy is not who you think he is." He exposes the fact that Wallace has perfected the art of being aggressively beige. And that's actually harder than it looks. Imagine working overtime just to be remembered as the human equivalent of unsalted crackers.
AOC and what do you call it? And Tim Walz were playing video games.
Playing Madden 25 live streaming during NFL Sunday, which is the chief strategist and campaign manager for the Harris campaign, completely like when you talk about their messaging, Pat, they're playing Madden live during NFL Sunday, and people were taking photos. Like, obviously the internet's relentless. His controller wasn't even on. And the end of the game, Pat, after playing for hours, guess what the score was?
They killed it. It was like a
0-0. And all they were talking about was Project 2025. But yeah.
The funniest part is how his supporters and critics both can't seem to pin him down. His fans think he's some kind of gentle reformer, while his detractors swear he's a political magician constantly pulling rabbits out of hats nobody asked for. But Patrick basically says, nope, he's neither. He's just a man who thrives on keeping everyone guessing while pretending he's just doing his job. And oh, the contradictions. This man can preach unity in the morning and then casually toss out divisive policies by lunchtime. He can wave around the flag of small-town values while quietly sipping the cocktail of big-league politics. It's like watching someone try to play both Monopoly and Uno at the same time, and somehow lose at both. Patrick Bet-David digs into all this and points out how Walz's biggest skill might not be policymaking or leadership or even basic communication. No, his biggest talent is survival. The guy can morph into whatever character the scene requires. Sometimes the tough leader, sometimes the soft-spoken dad, sometimes the wide-eyed optimist. Basically, the political version of a shapeshifter, except way less exciting. You've got to give him credit, though. It takes serious effort to look like you're running the show while constantly acting like you just stumbled into the room. Walz manages to convince people he's got everything under control while radiating the energy of someone who lost the...
What I am most proud of is, because of all the things Donald Trump has stolen, because this started, and I love this story as a young prosecutor.
What did he say?
Because this started, and I love this story as a young prosecutor.
Patrick exposes this dynamic like he's pulling receipts at a family intervention. The message is clear. Tim Walz is not the steady hand people assume. He's more like that one guy at work who looks responsible until you realize he's been winging it for years and somehow hasn't been fired yet. And when you think about it, that explains so much. His whole persona screams relatable everyman. But Patrick makes it obvious. Walz has been working overtime to hide the fact that he's just making it up as he goes. And honestly, it's kind of impressive, because let's face it, if you can get an entire state to believe you're both the wise dad and the bold leader while simultaneously pulling moves that contradict both roles, you're not just a politician, you're a magician. The kind of magician who doesn't pull rabbits out of hats, but instead pulls excuses, slogans, and policy pivots. Patrick paints Walz as a master of political camouflage. He blends into whatever environment he's in, which is probably why so many people still can't figure him out. To his base, he's their calm captain steering the ship. To his critics, he's the guy who keeps steering into icebergs while blaming the map. The reality Patrick highlights, Walz isn't misunderstood. He's perfectly understood if you accept that his entire playbook is built on controlled confusion. Keep people off balance. Act relatable. Sprinkle in some Midwestern dad energy and hope nobody notices when you're saying
$11 billion in taxes, Tim. How much have you paid in taxes? He's created hundreds of thousands of jobs. He was able to get a rocket to go and come back in 1/20th of a cost of NASA. When Boeing said, let's leave those couple people up there, we need till next year, he says, I can come and help. When you needed battery chargers nationwide, he already thought about that 15 years ago. When Zelensky, the greatest beggar fundraiser in the world, needed to get some money, and they talked shit about Elon, you know who gave them Starlink? Elon did. Internet. That's the guy? That's the gay guy? The guy with 11 kids is a gay guy? That's the guy. Really? How many gay guys do you know running 5 different multi-billion-dollar companies?
And yet, people keep buying it, which might be the most shocking revelation of all. Somehow, Walz has convinced voters he's the safe option, while simultaneously pulling off one of the longest-running improvisation acts in politics. That's not luck, that's a hustle. Patrick Bet-David exposes it all with the kind of clarity that makes you go, oh, so that's why nothing makes sense. He rips down the curtain and reveals Walz not as the steady leader people imagine, but as the guy in the back juggling plates while smiling like everything's fine. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Tim Walz isn't the man of the people. Here's the man who plays one on TV. And thanks to Patrick, the real Tim Walz, the messy, contradictory, endlessly improvising Tim Walz, just got dragged into the spotlight where the act doesn't look quite so smooth anymore. The best part about watching Patrick dismantle Walz's public persona is how brutally simple it all looks once you connect the dots. Walz isn't some mastermind running a grand strategy. No, the man operates like your Wi-Fi connection. Strong signal 1 second, total blackout the next. And somehow, everyone still pays the bill each month, like it's fine. Patrick lays it bare. Walz survives not because he's brilliant, but because he's mastered the delicate art of just enough. Just enough charm, just enough energy, just enough middle-of-the-road blandness to make people shrug and go, hey.
Listen carefully, and I had played it back a couple times, but you sounded upset.
What happened?
If I sounded pissed off, it's because I was. No, it's just like, he just ended his presidential career. I mean, there is no 2028 for Tim Walz. I buried him that day. Now, you have all these witnesses, these people that come to these big committees before Congress. They testify under oath. It's very, very public. And they spend millions of dollars to prepare for these hearings, for the toughest questions. What they're not ready for are for the dumbest questions, the most simple, most common sense questions. And so this is just a thing I've taken up on. I just ask Democrats when they come before me, what's a woman? And they just cannot answer
Who's
the
answered
question.
it? Who have you noticed that is actually willing to be reasonable and give the answer?
Nobody.
Are you serious?
No, I'm dead serious.
But here's the kicker. Sometimes he actually is setting the place on fire. He just manages to convince people it's part of the neighborhood barbecue. Think about his speeches. Walz doesn't inspire, he sedates. It's less rally the people and more background noise while you fold laundry. Patrick makes the point that Walz could announce a major crisis and half the room would think he's giving directions to the nearest gas station. It's the political version of elevator music, technically present, but nobody remembers what just happened. But that's the genius of it. Walz thrives in the fog. He doesn't need you to be inspired. He just needs you to be too confused, or too bored, to notice the contradictions. He'll flash that practice grin, toss out a cliché about unity, and hope you don't realize the policy papers say something entirely different. It's like he's playing a shell game, except instead of hiding a ball, he's hiding accountability. Patrick Bet-David calls it like it is. Walz is less of a leader and more of a political illusionist. His entire trick is to distract you with Midwestern niceness while he quietly rearranges the furniture behind the curtain. And the crazy part? It works. People walk away thinking, wow, what a wholesome guy, while ignoring the fact that they just agreed to a dozen contradictory policies in one afternoon. Let's not forget the contradictions that follow him around like unpaid parking tickets. Walz preaches fiscal responsibility, then spends like he's won the lottery. He promises transparency, then turns...
Get up in the morning and you doom scroll through things, and although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. There will be news sometime, just so you know, there will be news.
He brands himself as steady and reliable, but his track record looks more like a roller coaster designed by someone who's never seen a level. Patrick exposes this pattern with ruthless humor. He doesn't need to shout or rant, he just calmly lays out the receipts until you realize Walz isn't a mystery. Here's a predictable paradox. The man is simultaneously everything and nothing. A political Schrodinger's cat, both in control and completely clueless at the same time. And the wildest part. People buy it. Walz has somehow convinced voters he's a safe pair of hands. Safe as in the babysitter who lets the kids eat sugar for dinner and watch horror movies, but at least nobody got hurt. Here's the political equivalent of duct tape. Messy, temporary, and somehow still holding everything together. Patrick makes it clear, Walz isn't dangerous because he's extreme. He's dangerous because he's forgettable. Forgettable politicians are the ones who slide big changes under the radar while everyone's too busy yawning. Walz knows this, and he milks it. He leans into the boredom like it's his superpower. He doesn't need people cheering. He just needs them not paying attention. And that's where the real Tim Walz starts to show. Behind the grandpa smile and the awkward dad jokes is a guy who has turned political blandness into a weapon. He doesn't fight his battles loudly. He wins them quietly, with a shrug and a folksy story about his hometown. Patrick practically screams between the lines.
A heartbeat away from becoming the vice president of the United States of America.
That's scary.
And you can't define a woman. And if you can't define a woman, then you definitely can't define our rights as women. You definitely can't protect us as women. You can't protect our daughters. You can't protect me.
Whether, it was because of that question or not, if he would ever be president, because the way he handled himself in the debate with J.D. Vance, that was that's probably the worst debate performance I've ever seen, aside from Joe Biden's debate with the president, the first one where within the first 30 seconds, you're like, this is not good. Remember?
Think about it. Real authenticity is messy. It slips. It stumbles. It admits flaws. Walz's version of authenticity is suspiciously tidy, like a sitcom character who always has the perfect line. Patrick exposes that for what it is, stagecraft. A carefully choreographed act designed to keep people thinking he's just like us. While his running plays straight from the political textbook, Walz isn't a villain in Patrick's breakdown. Here's something more frustrating, the guy who manages to stay relevant without ever actually standing out. He's not inspiring change. He's managing vibes. And every folksy smile feels like another layer of camouflage hiding the improvisation happening backstage. The big takeaway: Tim Walz isn't extraordinary. He's not even particularly competent. What he is, according to Patrick's sharp lens, is the most underestimated kind of political operator, the bland survivor. The guy who plays it safe, keeps it...
Tim Walz is a knucklehead. That's not us talking, that's him talking. We saw him get picked, and we saw odd dancing, kicking his foot, yanking his son, who is a special needs individual, and us all wondering, what is this all about? And then say, well, maybe when he tightens up the suit a little bit, puts on that tie, and sits in the VP debate, maybe we'll see the real one. And then they asked him, did you or did you not go to China? He gave a 2-minute answer instead of just saying, yeah, I kind of...
And in that sense, maybe Patrick's greatest expose is not just about Walz himself, but about the system that allows a man like him to thrive. A system where being aggressively beige is more effective than being bold. Where survival is rewarded more than leadership. And where politicians like Tim Walz can coast for years by convincing people that forgettable is the same thing as trustworthy. So, the next time Walz steps onto a stage with that well-practiced grin, remember Patrick's words. You're not looking at the friendly small-town dad. You're looking at the political magician who built an entire career out of blending in. The guy who mastered the art of saying everything while committing to nothing. The man who's been hiding in plain sight, wrapped in khakis and dad jokes, while pulling off the longest-running improvisation act in America.